What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing the day 1 of 2 of this 3-round 2025 NFL mock draft. Just like the NFL draft, I do split this up into 2 days to give you guys proper analysis. Day 1, round 1, day 2, rounds 2 and 3, so that you guys get to actually hear my opinion rather than me just scrolling through a list and being able to just tell you some bullshit analysis in 2 seconds. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. I love you guys. For those of you who have been here for so long, Happy New Year. It's been one hell of a journey, 4.5 years in, but on the road to 15K. Hopefully we can get there soon. But let's get into this. Below my face is my board. It's continually being updated. And so if you guys are wondering why certain guys are at certain spots, the majority of them already have a video out. If not, I already post clips of these guys on Twitter, which is easy to access through my link tree. 2 clicks, you get to go do that. And then you guys get to understand why I really love these players. I post videos of all 22 clips over there before I even do the full video here. So stay tuned for that. Super excited for it. Let's get into this. This is a trades mock draft. It is a live mock draft, so feel free to call me out on things that might not be correct. I always say be a dick. Just don't be a dick about it. We're going to have a great year. This is going to be a great way to start off. The number 1 overall pick. So for the New England Patriots, I think the best option would be to trade down. The problem is I think you have to have a bidder that's willing to pay. Now, a lot of people are saying, hey, you know, the Giants, the Raiders have that Tom Brady connection to the Patriots. I get it. But at the same time, I really do want to emphasize the fact that that's really, really expensive. That require multiple first-round picks and maybe even more than that. And is that worth it to you to move up to 1 to select a quarterback that people don't think is worth a number 1 overall pick? Are these players better than Caleb Williams? If your answer is yes, then maybe it is worth it. But if your answer is no, are they better than Jaden? No. Better than Drake? No. Are they better than Michael Penix? Michael Penix was a big reach at pick 8. Just going to say, he's ended up doing a really good job so far. Love that for him. But that's what a pick 8 kind of quarterback is. So if you're going to spend a lot of first-round picks, next year you have Nussmeier, Aller, Manning, a lot of guys, Sellers, potentially Milrow. Like, there's just a lot of guys. So again, I want to say, hey, let's trade the number 1 pick, but you have to have someone willing to come up and pay the price. And you technically could see the Browns saying, hey, we need a wide receiver. We potentially need another corner, Travis Hunter. Let's just spend like an extra 3rd-round pick to go and get him, maybe a 2nd-round pick. Patriots would like that. I just don't see it worth it for any team to move up. So Travis Hunter is going to be the number 1 overall selection. If you're going to have to take a pick number 1, take the best overall, lowest risk player in the class. And people might say, hey, a little bit on the lighter side. 185 is not something that like really makes me shiver my timbers. He's a really talented player who has played a lot of time. I mean, he kind of got exposed for being pretty much carried by a running back into the end zone. At the same time, he's a corner. I mean, I would hope that the rest of the defense could also kind of assist. Pretty much a cornerback being one-on-one versus a running back, especially one with good contact balance. It's very rare you get to see the cornerback win that situation. And the only one I really kind of saw win, which he still got planted on his ass, was Joey Porter Jr. versus Tank Bigsby. So I'll put that out there. But Travis Hunter, he's going to work probably as your corner. He's probably going to work if you have to use him as a receiver. And I think my great vision for him is that maybe 5, maybe even 10 years down the line, or you can do it right away, put him at free safety, and you're having yourself an Ed Reed level player with his zone IQ as well as ball skills. So I love that potential there for Hunter. He doesn't have super high expectations in terms of, since he is going to be a corner too, you're not going to be having to be the best corner in the league versus the number 1 receiver every single down. That's a longer leash for him to have success versus wide receiver 2s and everything. Let's move on, though, to pick number 2 for the Tennessee Titans. And again, this is another spot where I say we should evaluate trading back. And I think that it is possible. But the problem is, I keep pointing this out, and I really want people to understand, to trade back, you have to have someone willing to trade up. And again, I already mentioned about the fact that the Raiders, look at the price of that. That price of a move up is multiple first-round picks. You're not going to send just a 2nd-round pick for the Titans to be like, okay, going to move back. That's just not possible. That's like saying, hey, I have a $50 Hobby Lobby gift card, and then someone's like, hey, I have $20. It's like, you know, hey, yeah, I could use $20 in my pocket. Maybe I'm not going to spend all $50 at Hobby Lobby. Maybe it's not worth it for me to have, like, you know, if you give me $50 or $50 Hobby Lobby gift card, you know, I'll go with the $50, right? But you're not going to get screwed out of it in terms of saying, okay, well, I'll take the $20. unless you don't have a girlfriend or don't have Hobby Lobby, which, that might be beneficial to you. But I mean, just basically saying, for the Titans, you're not going to be accepting a mediocre deal to move down. You are going to get worse talent as the board progresses. So for the Titans, you have to go after the best player available. Now the question is, who is that going to be? Can you somehow find Sam Darnold in free agency? Maybe. But I talked about this actually in a video yesterday, and it was kind of unhinged when I had talked about it, but I think it allows to paint the picture why Shedeur Sanders might be the pick, and I think I want you guys to hear it again. So a lot of people like Cam Ward more. Cam Ward has a higher talent ceiling. He has a better arm. He has a better mobility. He has a bigger splash plays. Shedeur Sanders, not as athletic. He takes some pretty damn bad sacks, and he's not really somebody that necessarily screams, I'm going to be an elite quarterback in the NFL. But at the same time, you see a dude on the street who's 5'8", so looking guy, right? Like he seems like he has a good head on his shoulders, doesn't look like a douchebag. I might be talking about myself, but we tell people we're 5'9". But regardless, I mean, if you see that on the street, you're like, okay, well, are you going to be George Clooney? Are you going to be Brad Pitt? No, but you date someone who is a very attractive woman, who has similar interests, who has similar goals, who is there for you and actually works well with you. You're going to be a lot better of a partner than if you just said, oh, that hot girl's like, oh, I want Brad Pitt. Now, I made the comment that it's like, hey, if I date a girl who's 6'5", be fun. If she likes dirt biking, could be fun, a little bit unhinged, but it doesn't really fit me. Doesn't mean it's a bad girl, doesn't mean I'm a bad guy, but if you have someone who has a little bit of a similar interest, then you're going to be better than what you are if you take yourself out of that equation. And I think that's the way it is with Shedeur Sanders, because Brian Callahan has had an extensive period of time with Joe Burrow. And having these playmakers with big arms, solid athleticism, and still pretty boneheaded mistakes has not worked out for him. So if you want to fire Brian Callahan, go with Cam Ward. If you want to keep him, go with the quarterback that's going to succeed. If you go Cam Ward and you say, oh, because he's better, you're screwing Cam Ward, you're screwing yourself, and you're screwing your team. Because you're giving Cam Ward a situation that's not beneficial for him, or optimal for him, I should say, when you do have somebody who is optimal. And yes, I would love to trade down. You're not going to get one of these guys at that spot. Maybe you would. We can do a one where the quarterbacks just completely slip. But I am going to go Shedeur Sanders. I'm going to get ripped a new one for it, but I'm going to go with that. At number 3, we have the Cleveland Browns. And similarly to what I was talking about earlier, I think this team is a prime candidate for Cam Ward. Now, the funny thing is that I might be screwing 2 teams out of a quarterback that definitely need one there in the Giants as well as the Raiders. Now, Cam Ward, I think, since the restructured Watson contract, it does make it a little bit less likely. But this is where, if you are the Raiders, you don't want to spend multiple, like every single pick, if you look at the pick value, drops by 400 points. So you are essentially gaining a second-round pick every time you wait an extra selection. Do you want to jump the Giants? And the question is it worth it? My answer is maybe, and that's where we should consider it. If the answer is like, I'm really uncomfortable, the answer should be no. If the answer is maybe, let's consider it. But if you're the Browns, you move back to pick 8, you are losing out on a lot of potential talent. And I think a team like the New York Giants is hearing, hey, the Raiders are calling, the Jets are calling, we need to put a call in as well. And if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I love the fact that I'm getting ringy-dingy-dingy from 3 different teams, all desperate for the last quarterback of the bunch. And I'm going to go with the one that has the least amount of risk, because I still think the Cleveland Browns could be getting a badass player. So I'm actually going to take this offer from the New York Giants. And I think it only costs a 3rd-round pick, because if I'm the Browns, it's free money. It's house money, I should say. But you might not want that 3rd-round pick. You might have gotten a 2nd-round pick from somebody else. So we're taking the Giants 2nd, and we're actually giving them a 3rd-round pick in return. That might sound like a bad deal to you. It sounds like a great deal to me. You're moving up 31 spots to move back 1. But for the Giants, you're securing your quarterback. I call that a win-win. And so the Giants move up to select Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. I mean, if you're the Cleveland Browns, and you could go Cam Ward, train him up, but I just did that very recently, in literally Monday's video, and I want to be able to test out a new theory where the Cleveland Browns have now moved down to pick number 4, and you have a plethora of picks that are at your disposal, and one of them is Abdul Carter. I think Abdul Carter to the Browns makes a ton of sense. Now, Abdul Carter is extremely freaky with his athleticism. He's not necessarily the same build that the Browns go after, but he is 250, 255. I mean, he's going to be in that range, and he has room to put on more muscle. Freak bend. He's progressed way faster than anybody's ever expected. And for me, I love to see the progression trends because I think those translate better than stats do. And Abdul Carter has progressed a lot in a very short period of time. That's going to be someone who I hitch my wagon to. Abdul Carter goes at pick number 4. You picked up a second round pick for the cost of a third. So you get Abdul Carter and a second round pick for Cam Ward and a third. Both teams, I think, end up succeeding in this situation. But it was a player I was considering for you guys at number 3. Number 5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm continuing to go this route. We're going Will Johnson all day. This team needs a boundary corner, someone who is extremely physical, and this is someone who can be a corner 1, a corner 2, depending on what you think of Tyson Campbell, but this team needs defensive help as well. And number 6 for the Carolina Panthers, this is a quick and easy one as well. Let's not mess around. We've had some time where we yapped ad nauseum about a lot of these teams. Mason Graham is the best defensive interior of the class. Derek Brown needs someone next to him that takes the load off. It takes maybe Derek Brown still takes the double teams, but someone who can take advantage of single one-on-ones, and Mason Graham can absolutely do that. He's going to be very similar, in my opinion, to Braden Fisk in terms of the potential, and Braden Fisk has been an absolute dominant threat there. So at number 6, we go Mason Graham. At number 7 for the New York Jets, would have been nice to be able to get Will Johnson or Mason Graham, or even Abdul Carter for that fact. And with Tetro McMillan still on the board, with a third-round pick in the trash, essentially, for Devontae Adams, I'm trading out this spot. And I see a team that, I mean, they're looking at edge, but they have extra draft capital. They have exactly what we need. And they need a legitimate wide receiver. I know they'll be looking for a wide receiver, or like they'll be probably looking for an edge in the first, but I mean, the insiders say Shamar Stewart is on their radar. You guys ended up calling that out, so feel free to fact check yourself. And I would love to hear what the fact check ends up coming out to. But regardless, we are kind of missing a legitimate third round pick. Now, maybe you get a little bit more out of this. Like, I think maybe we could do like pick 111 out of this equation, maybe 127, and we trade in 160. Like, feel free, again, to modify that on your own. But I think that being able to get that actual legitimate third round pick back, 94, who gives a shit, is just great for me. I love it. I think the Saints are in a great spot as well because I'm looking at potentially offensive line here, but also a little bit more flexibility on what I'd like to do. The Saints have moved up and selected Teteroa McMillan. Tet is just an absolute baller of a receiver in the role that I think he would play here for the Saints. A couple teams that I really like him to go to, actually all 3 of these teams are great teams for him to go to because he is at number 9 on my board. This is not, it's like my one exception to how I do this. It's not my role specific grade for him. Well, this is based, like I have my weighted grades specifically on holistic grades. I think holistically is a wide receiver where you pretty much like put a blindfold on, you throw a dart at teams. That's the grade I'm going to give them. Like I tried to do that for all these players because things can start getting a little bit wonky otherwise. For T-Mac, the differential was so noticeable that it's like, it's not representative of what the role the team is going to be drafting him for. And at the same time, I also think it misrepresents what I think of him in terms of where I draft him. So this is the one exception where as an X receiver, he was graded out as a 79 out of 80, nearly a blue chip. And so I do want to be able to give him the love he deserves. And number 8 for the Las Vegas Raiders, I'd love for you guys to value Ashton Genty. You guys, just your organization doesn't seem to value running back at that rate. Yes, Josh Jacobs was a pick. You guys didn't keep him. And now he's, he's being Josh Jacobs, like the legit Josh Jacobs that we know. But at the same time, I am looking at Kelvin Banks here, Will Campbell. I mean, you can talk about Josh Simmons as well. And you have a couple teams here, these 3 teams that are kind of lurking for that tackle spot. Could we see one of them move up? I don't think it's going to be to that degree. And so the Vegas Raiders are kind of in a little bit of a pickle here. And the best way to get out of this is to choose the best player available. Now, could that be like James Pierce? Maybe, but I think your edge core, honestly, your defensive line's doing a pretty good job. I think that's translatable to the future. You got the running backs, love them. And then, the next best thing, not going to take Azariah Thomas for you, is Malachi Starks. And defensive back is a big position for you to target. Like a noticeable position. Both the safeties, gone. If I'm not mistaken, feel free to correct me on that. But I think that Merrick's up for a contract. I mean, hell, even Divine Diablo, who's a linebacker, is up for a contract. He's a former safety from VT. Like, you guys are in need of that defensive back. And Malachi Starks, as a non-slot corner versus a fast, like a split, like a pretty much a Tyreek Hill kind of slot, he is arguably the best player in the class for his position. And so I think that is certainly something I want to be able to test out. And I do know a couple teams, technically the Bears, the Jets, the Colts, even the Dolphins and the Bengals. All these teams could be going after Malachi Starks. So trying to say that he's a little bit overvalued at this point, that's not true. I mean, you could end up playing the money ball game and doing a better job down the board, but I really like Malachi Starks. He's a high floor pick because you're going to find a role for him that works at the very minimum, and he's a really good player when he's in the right situation. For the Bears at pick number 9, I'd love to go Ashton Jeanty, but after looking how Caleb just really needs offensive protection, I can't ignore that plea anymore. And Josh Simmons is a fantastic player. He ended up having a season-ending injury, but I do believe that if he were fully healthy through the entire season, I would be willing to take him as high as number 2 overall, if not number 1. Like, if I'm being real, Josh Simmons would be my number 1 overall pick. I would take him to the Patriots over Travis Hunter. That's how much I liked him. He's my number 4 overall player pre-injury. These are pre-injury grades. That's why I have a plus there. And so post-injury, I think you'd end up slipping to 10 to 15 range. And that is still very much in play at pick number 9 for a team that could use a guard, could use a tackle. And so I'm a big fan of this move. You guys also know kind of what my strategy is with Donovan Jackson potentially, but we'll see if it gets there. It's a live mock draft. I have no idea how it's going to go. But for the New York Jets, I do think I've been all in the Tyler Warren train to this team because I do think that a reliable tight end is as valuable as any other piece in the entire offense, but I am sucker for tackles. Kelvin Banks is here. He is viewed with Will Campbell, Josh Simmons as the top of the class. And with Joe Alt doing so well, I do think that, people, and Tali Fawaga as well, these transitions, and JC Latham for that matter, these transitions from left to right tackle, right to left tackle have seemed to be working well. And you have Fashanu there. Both of those tackles that you have, the older ones, the vets, gone. Kelvin Banks is going to be the pick. So at pick number 11 for the San Francisco 49ers, I honestly am debating moving back here. I personally don't think that the board fell as well as I wanted to for him. But at the same time, I could go Will Campbell here and just kind of lock down that offensive tackle position. Kind of like a Joe Staley vibe, but Will Campbell doesn't have, I believe, again, the numbers are yet to come out, but I don't think he has the arm length. But I will admit, he still has a good grade as a tackle. I just have it so much higher as a guard. And for that reason, I still think the Niners could end up making it worth their while to take Will Campbell at this spot. So we're not going to trade back. We're going to select Will Campbell because I do think that there's too many variables at play. At number 12 for the Indianapolis Colts, defensive back off the table. I will be having Ben Morrison return in this one. Just until he decides to come out, to me, it just makes too much sense for him to return. So I will actually be selecting tight end here, and I'll be selecting Tyler Warren instead. I think he adds a new element to the run game with his blocking abilities, 260, and he's still a very reliable weapon as a pass catcher. Maybe not the separator that you're looking for. Actually, I think he's a really good separator, but he's not the athlete that necessarily might be what you're looking for. He generates separation with a lot of strength and, change of direction ability, which I do love about him. And number 13 for the Dallas Cowboys, it's just so obvious to me that if you have Ashton Jeanty here, he is coming off a pretty bad game there that last week. I don't know, why is it not populated yet? That's kind of crazy that they don't have the most recent game versus Penn State. But regardless, he ended up having a couple fumbles, 3.5 yards per carry. I do think that actually kind of worries me a little bit, to the point where I actually think Omari and Hampton could go over Ashton Jeanty. And to be fair, they have the same exact grade. Completely different reasonings. Omari and Hampton is way more dynamic of an athlete. in my opinion, than Ashton is. Ashton's still a great athlete, but Amari Hampton, I think that he could, after that recent performance, be looked at, because with 2 fumbles, he had 5 the year before. And I think now he has 3 on the year. It is something that could come into concern. And so I think that the Cowboys might even go and buck the Bronco and go after Amari Hampton. Could you have traded back? I just don't think that. Like, the price to pay to move up at this point, I don't see it being worth it compared to being able to get a top 10 player in the class at 13 at a position of need. I love Amari Hampton. That's just me. So we're going to rock it with that. At number 14, I mean, also, I want to give a shout out to some of my fans. They love Emeka Egbuka to the team. I honestly could see it working, but, just not at 13. At 14 for the Arizona Cardinals, you guys are starting to reconvince me back on the Jalen Walker train just because the value's too damn good. He's also multi-positional, which you guys like that flexibility. I also don't think you need to bring back Baron Browning because you can save some cash doing that, and you do have then the ability to use him everywhere. By the way, his grade actually is reflective of a linebacker grade, not just his edge grade. So he's a really, really good player, and I'm actually going to select him there at 14. At 15 for the Miami Dolphins, let's block the Bronco in terms of taking defensive back for this team because I love going Nicky Manwari. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to shift it a little bit. And, trying to find something that's relatively realistic for the team as well. It is going defensive interior. And I personally think Tyleik Williams is going to test way better than what people think. Is Omar Norman-Lott or Tyleik Williams to me? Both of them are 2 and 3 respectively on my defensive interior list. And Tyleik Williams is just pretty much almost unblockable. Omar Norman-Lott is someone who is ridiculously talented. He is above Tyleik for me, but so minutely because he's just a freak athlete who's still very raw. This team needs someone who could just be reliable, generate some pressure. I don't think you guys value offensive line enough to be able to take one in the first. So I'm going to draft Tyleik Williams and make the best out of the situation. It's not going to be exciting, but I do think the Bengals are on the board for him. I think that the Falcons are an underrated team that could look at Tyleik as a nose. And I also think that there are a multitude of teams that could be looking at Tyleik Williams and saying, going to be my kind of guy. So, you can't trade back and just, expect for everything to get there. But regardless, at number 16 for the Cincinnati Bengals, Ashton Jeanty at this point, kind of intriguing. I mean, he is just so good. But again, you're coming off one of those weeks where it's like, man, I was really hoping for you to be better. But we're going to go James Pierce here. We are. So James Pierce, I mean, I have him above Jalen Walker. But Jalen Walker, again, I'm talking about the fact that he's multi-positionally versatile. James Pierce is an edge rusher. He does have a little bit of a size concern, but I don't see it being empirical in his play. That doesn't mean people still won't be afraid of the size. So we're going to go James Pierce at 16. At 17 for the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, so many good picks here. Nick Scorton is available. LT Overton just returned today. So, I mean, the class, as loaded as is, got a little bit smaller. But for the Atlanta Falcons, you technically could look, I'm trying to see it. We honestly should trade out for the Falcons. They have no picks, right? Yeah, they have nothing. This is a trade out spot. Ashton Jeanty is available. What team needs a running back? Honestly, can you imagine the Broncos sniping Ashton Jeanty? Holy shit. But you know who I think of even more who needs a running back? And honestly, I like the move. It is the Los Angeles Chargers. I think there's no way that Harbaugh sees a player of that caliber slip and it's just like, we'll let him slide. No. So 17 to 15 was pick 120. So I think that in order to get the Falcons more picks, I think you might go 196 and 217 as well to be able to just kind of bolster that back end of the draft. Again, feel free to move it up to 175 if you please, but I do think the value's it's requisite. So the Chargers end up drafting Ashton Jeanty, leaving at pick 18 the Seattle Seahawks. And you guys know me, I love going Ursary for this team because I like the vision of him as a tackle in the short term as a guard. That's the way that I'm going to continue to go. He's going to play that guard role in the short run, and then Abe Lucas, with his injury concern, definitely could be on pace to be able to take over in the long. Houston Texans at pick number 19. There's a lot of routes that you can go for this team, but I really do think at this point, with the injury concerns to, both Tank Dell, the inconsistency of health for Nico Collins, Diggs being gone on free agency, but also at the same time, not really the biggest, like kind of in the OBJ stage of his career. I'm going to be going after Luther Burden. He's a great player. He's a great talent. I'm perfectly happy with him. At pick number 20 for the Denver Broncos, I'll be opting out of the wide receiver pick with Emeka Egbuka and going Colston Loveland here because tight end. It's a massive need, and it's really damn good value. At number 21 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I've gone edge rusher for them in the first round so many times. I want to change it a little bit for you guys, give you guys something a little bit special and a little bit new. And that is actually going to be going for wide receiver. And I love Emeka Egbuka. He's just such a rock-solid competitor, and he's super well-balanced. It's something that you don't have to really overthink. He's just a great player. At number 22 for the Atlanta Falcons, the reason Nick Scourton's falling is because in history, we've seen guys like George Karlaftis slip at this size, at this frame. So I think this is the relative range where you can start appreciating that. But I will actually be going after a project player here, and that's Jihad Campbell. I love Jihad Campbell. He's an edge rusher for me, but he also does have that linebacker versatility. I think he was the number 3 edge in his high school class. He's going to be coming out and potentially being an edge for you guys, but also on top of that, he could end up playing some linebacker reps, and you guys still have it open for taking larger edge rushers like a Scourton type down the board. Number 23 for the Los Angeles Rams. We are looking at that left tackle spot. Not many great options. So I am actually going to look for a potential trade back spot here because you do have some really good players like Cam Williams that could be worth moving up for, but you also have some good edge rushers, some good corners, and it's certainly a spot where you might actually be able to profit off of some guys who are looking for corners, especially as well, like Trey Amos, Siobhan Revell. At the same time, a lot of quantity as well. So quarterback wise, you could even talk about Milroe with that 5th-year contract. I don't think he comes out, but based on all the guys who are returning to school, trying to see though who's worth moving up for. And my next best player is Azariah Thomas. Outside of that, then it's JT Tuimalau. I just don't see teams really seeing that as super valuable. Then it's Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, Omar Norman Lott. I just don't see it. I don't think the Rams are going to get a buyer. So if you got to make the best of this situation, go after a corner. Go after someone who's physical, who's smart. And I think I'm going to swap it, and we're going to go Trey Amos. And at number 24 with the Green Bay Packers, you guys need a multitude of positions, including edge, including 3 tech, even potentially an interior offensive lineman as well, which it would be kind of cute to put Jonas Savania with his teammate Jordan Morgan. But I do like the way your offensive line is. I do not see that as a first round issue. Corner as well. There's a lot of great guys who I think could work well in Jeff Hafley's system, but I also do think you guys could kind of kick it down the road. I'm going to go and select a player that is one of my guys, someone who I really, really like. He's my number 2 defensive interior who can work into that defensive interior mold, and he just has a little bit of a limited number of reps this past year. 226 total reps, not a ton, but he has one of the highest pass rush win rates. He is the most explosive and athletic defensive interior in the class. He's extremely excited to watch. I have a full video out on the defensive interior class. Feel free to go check it out. But this guy is absolutely phenomenal. I didn't expect for him to be this good, but I really do think if you're going to be taking a player based on ceiling and legit potential, it's kind of hard to say that you would not take Omar Norman Lott over almost anybody in the class. So we're going to go after Norman Lott there. For the Steelers at 25, a lot of really good choices here. I think the prime opportunity would be for the Philadelphia Eagles maybe to move up for Cam Williams, because I do see a couple teams lurking right there in front of them that certainly could be looking for a tackle. You could see a team even like, we could talk about right now with the Browns with having 2 second-round picks trying to move up, but as the Steelers wouldn't really want to do that. But if you were able to snipe it on up, probably wouldn't be a bad idea. The Jets, if we didn't end up going after Kelvin Banks, be a good spot as well. So I do think the star of this pick is going to be Cam Williams, and he's going to demand a solid market. And so I actually am going to have the Philadelphia Eagles move up. Michael Williams is a dream. I think it's a great pick, but I do think that you need to be proactive and not reactive when it comes to Lane Johnson. I love Fred Johnson to death, but I don't think that guy will be able to remotely get close to filling the shoes that Cam Williams could. So I think this would take probably 154. Could end up taking a little bit higher, but 17 to 15 is pick 120. 25 to 28 might even be as low as pick 161. We'll go to 154 for just for the cuteness of that Pennsylvania love right there. So Philadelphia, city of brotherly love, you guys are moving up and selecting Cameron Williams, tackle out of Texas, to be the long-term replacement for Lane Johnson. And as an added bonus, you give the biggest middle finger to one of your division rivals in the Washington Commanders. Speaking of, they're sitting here at 26. You got Mykel Williams, you got Nick Scorton here. I think that based on Dan Quinn, being comfortable with DeMarcus Lawrence, could see him definitely going after Nick Scorton. Good body type, great value, great player. Just, again, historically, we look at where these edge rushers go, regardless of how talented they are. Unless you're like Myles Garrett level, which Nick Scorton is not. I see him much closer to Marshawn Nealon level. Then they're going to be going at the back half of the first. Then we had 27, the Baltimore Ravens. I'm actually going to be rocking potentially with 2 picks here. It's Tyler Booker and it's Mykel Williams. I do think you could end up really boosting this team's potential if you go after Williams. You could go after Kenneth Grant as well, but I really think that I want to draft Tyler Booker. I don't know if returning to school is going to increase his value enough. So he's like the only Alabama player that I'm like certain should come out. And Tyler Booker will be the selection here for the Baltimore Ravens. Could have went cutesy and ended up going after Jonas Savania, who's a potential tackle. But sometimes just getting the best player available is the best move. Steelers back at 28. Corner. I have Ben Morrison returning in this. But corner, technically defensive interior as well. I mean, you got TJ Sanders, Derek Harmon. You have a lot of really good players here. Darius Alexander, but that's not a first-round guy. Kenneth Grant would be very intriguing, though. The value almost is too good to pass on. And I've gone in these positions a multitude of times for the Steelers to the point where I want to try something new. But I could also see them like moving back with a team that would love moving up for Kenneth Grant. Now, that team in question, don't really know if they have the capital necessary to make a move like that. So I was thinking of the Bears moving up for Kenneth Grant. That would have been a fun one. But is there any team that potentially could move up for Mykel Williams? And I think the Bills are a great team for Mykel. I also think the Lions should be in the market for Williams as well. So I'm actually going to do a double trade back with the Steelers. I just don't see the value here for us. And so with Williams on the board, I'm going to have the Lions just narrowly jump the Bills. And for this, I'll go 129, but it's going to be a pick swap. We're going to have 158 as part of the deal. Quantity stays the same for the Lions, but the quality improves for the Steelers. We move up, what is that, roughly 30 spots, 29 spots, and we move back 2. So with the Detroit Lions on the board, they go and they select their top tier edge rusher in Mykel Williams, leaving the Buffalo Bills still with plenty of really good options, including Shamar Stewart. And I really love Shamar Stewart. You could easily go defense interior here, though, with Kenneth Grant. And honestly, based on the value available, kind of hard to say no. 340 pounds, unique frame, great motor, just is still developing. And at the end of the first, I feel comfortable letting that be the pick. At number 30 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we moved back a multitude of times. I did consider Kenneth Grant. I think that's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. I don't see any wide receiver being worth this selection. And round 2, we're pretty set. So I could see defense interior being a move. I could see cornerback being a move. But since we moved back from Kenneth Grant, I'm going to say let's avoid defense interior first round. I could see corner being the move. And then you technically could look at offensive line. Jonas Savania could be a developmental offensive lineman for us. But at the same time, I really do see corner as the primary position to target. You could look at safety with someone like Nick Eamon-Wari as well. You could even go and look at running back, but no reason to do that here. So taking that all out of the equation, we are going to go back to that corner route. I wanted to do something different, but at the same time, when you do have something like Azariah Thomas, Darian Porter here for the Steelers, I don't really think that you can say no. And I'm going to offer Azariah Thomas this time around. I usually just, I like to flip-flop the two. Both of them have very similar skill sets in terms of 6'2" plus. It's like 6'2" for Azariah, 6'4" for Porter. And then both of them essentially 200 pounds, 198 for Thomas, 200 for Porter. But both of them quick feet, really good athletes, and, just Thomas has a little bit more seasoning technically. So at 31, though, for the Minnesota Vikings, a lot of really good players still on the board. You'd be happy to select any one of them, but I do kind of want to be able to reshuffle the board a little bit. And so is there anybody worth moving up for? And I do see the quarterback class as one that could be in that kind of realm. You got Siobhan Revell here, Jahdae Barron. You also have some good defensive interiors. But is there somebody who does not like the Chiefs being able to have their selection of corners? That's my question that I'm asking right now, because that's probably the pick I'm going to go after. I got Darian Porter, Siobhan Revell here, but I also want to take the better of the two and give the worst of the two to the Chiefs rather than letting them have the selection. So who needs a corner? We've already gotten one for the Jaguars. Technically, the Jets are not a bad team for this. They moved back and got good draft capital, really good draft capital, to the point where I want to see, does it make sense for the Vikings to be able to move back with the Jets? Remember, we got that 74 from New Orleans, and then we had a little bit of a pick swap there with, we also got that Washington pick from New Orleans as well. So with all of these picks, I feel very comfortable making this move. It's an 8-spot jump, so I think it will be probably that pick 108. You guys can end up tossing in something as well. Like maybe we could end up making it 74 and they move back to 97. Like that actually wouldn't be a bad idea, because then you reshuffle the deck. The Vikings now have a 2nd round pick and a 3rd round pick. And then you guys get to be able to essentially have your own day 2. The New York Jets still end up having pretty much the equal quantity of picks as well. So we're going to go with that. Actually, I like that. That makes me feel really comfortable because the Jets still get a 3rd out of this equation. And the Jets have now moved up to select their top corner, because I also think that there are some other teams that be looking for these corners. And so you traded back and you traded back up. You ended up leaving this first round with 2 really good players. And Siobhan Revell feels a lot more similar to what you guys have right now in Sauce Gardner. I think that could replace DJ Reed well, and it basically just allows you to fill in that DJ Reed role very well. So Kelvin Banks, Siobhan Revell, and you still net positive. I call that a win. Then you got the Kansas City Chiefs, and I talked about it. I wanted to go after corner for him. I'm going to go Darian Porter here. Jahdae Barron feels a little too close to Trent McDuffie, and I think there might be a little bit of an overlap or role there. So we're going to be going after Darian Porter, 6'4", 200 pounds. Really good trio of corners here. You can take them in any order that you like, but the 3 are really damn good. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow. See you on the far side. Peace.